Today's session is follows on from what we've done before, where we introduced the new economy, platformization. And in this session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about materiality, the immaterial and the material, the tangible and the intangible. And I kind of like this topic because it really is a bit of an eye-opener as to how firms and the management of firms, how they demonstrate value. And I mean value in terms of financial and economic value, but also it demonstrates, I think, or it introduces us to what is valuable within our society in terms of, you know, what we attribute value and how we attribute value to certain things. And the new economy, this shift from industrial production to the post-industrial knowledge-based production, typified by networks, as talked about by Castells, is that there is this shift as well from material production of goods and services to value being expressed in immaterial terms, things that are less than tangible. A new economy that's comprised of a space of flows, but what exactly is the flow? And I think that that's where we material and the material. So this presentation of this workshop is about this sort of like this tension or this apparent paradox where firms and economics thinks about, or economics thinks about firms in the terms of the stuff that they produce. Gosh, that's terrible English, isn't it? Apologize. Think about firms in the terms of what they produce. And the assumption is that we produce something that has value that we can hold and see and touch. But is that always the case? What exactly is it that constitutes this flow? And predominantly, it's data, zeros and ones, a collection of zeros and ones. And from those zeros and ones, we've been able to extract value or claim that there is value within the zeros and the ones because it's information. It's this information orientated economy that was talked about by Bell and then more latterly by Castells and then by a number of others. Bauman in particular talks about liquid economies. But the flow is essentially a series of zeros and ones, and that can be, it's data that is collected from our activities online or our activities in terms of using a credit card. So it could be financial data, it could be behavioral data which corresponds to our likes that we've expressed by whichever websites that we visit and how we interact and engage with the internet and social media. But it can also be, if you just think about it in a more abstract form, is that one of the things that I've tried to convey is that money in itself is an abstraction. So that money can be seen as a flow of zeros and ones, but we call that money. But it is effectively just data. What's the difference, therefore, between zeros and ones that flow as money and zeros and ones that flow as data and all the other flows of data, however we classify them, that flow all over the globe? And the effect that a reliance or a business model that's based upon production and the movement of data renders the material world immaterial. Okay, so we can take material things and we can make them appear somewhere else, but so we've rendered them immaterially. From goods and services, energy and information, from capital to knowledge, there's a move, a shift from the formers to the latters. And I've just included this point by one of my favorite social scientists, a guy called Matt Salverson, who's at Lund University in Denmark. And Alverson is very critical, he's very political, but one of the points that he makes, which I think is quite useful, quite interesting, is that if everything is knowledge, as everything's been reduced down to knowledge, and knowledge captures everything, is that then surely it should have little value. because it's everything. We've reduced everything down to zeros and ones, and it should have little value, but it doesn't. And that's the paradox. It's paradoxical in that respect. And we can move things from here to anywhere in a click of a button. So this raises a fundamental question, slightly philosophical, I guess, but as the world becomes more liquid, as we can move things around at the speed of a click, does it therefore it become less certain? It means that we can know it less. Our empirical observations of it might only exist at that moment in time. So it raises some interesting questions. Now, we won't get to the bottom of all those questions because they are questions, I think, for philosophers and deep thinkers. But this will at least introduce us to the concepts of materiality and immateriality that are so blatantly apparent if only we stop to recognize them and think about them in the new economy in which we live. So the first point Don wanted to raise to you is a dematerialization of consumption, how we consume things. What do you buy? And where do you buy them? And how do you buy it? And this, what we're buying is changing as the products are made less tangible. And they rematerialize somewhere else. So things like music. You used to buy music as a material artifact, a record, a tape going back many years, or a CD, but now, or even as an MP3 download. At least I could say, well, there it is. Well, now you stream music, you don't own it. You've not bought the music, you buy an access to the music, but it's being materialized and streamed and rematerialized so that you can hear it. And the same applies with movies through things like digital TVs, streaming platforms like Netflix, games, online games platforms and streaming of games. At the point you don't have to buy the games anymore, you can just join a platform and stream the games over there. Books, digital books, digitalized books, which you'll be well aware of working in the university and accessing all of your reading materials via libraries, but online reading platforms. Photographs and photography is that maybe your parents would have had a box of precious photographs of when you were kids, things like that. But you don't have that anymore. All the photographs of my children are kept on my computer. And I can send them anywhere and access them anywhere. Newspapers, the same, but also art. Now this image loses a bit of its appeal on your computer screen. You need to blow it up so it takes up the whole screen. But this is an image, is that when I show it in a lecture theatre and it's on one of those big screens, it's probably about real size. And that this image is probably around about 20 foot across, I'd imagine. 20 foot. What's a foot? Eh? So let's say about 2.2 meters. No, that's not even 20 foot, is it? What's 20 foot in meters? Work it out. You're the mathematical ones. Anyway, so it's about 20 foot across. It's a big thing. It's a big piece of art. And it's very, very famous, Liechtenstein's Wham. But actually, the point that I would be making is that I can project this and it looks like the real thing, which is in the New York Gallery of Modern Art. Well, I don't need to go to New York so that I can witness the vivacity and the excitement of Liechtenstein's Wham. I can project it onto a wall and I can enjoy it there and then, assuming I've got the right tech in order to be able to give it justice. Which one is the real? And that creates a few problems. Now, this is an article, or as a front page of GQ, Gentleman's Quarterly, I think. And it's quite old now, but I like it as an image because it's showing a picture of Kate Winslet. But that's not Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet doesn't look like that. She looks a bit like it, but she doesn't look like that. And Kate Winslet is a sort of Rubenesque kind of young lady. There's nothing wrong with that. But this image is quite heavily doctored. Change the image, change the shape quite a lot. So is it now Kate Winslet? Or is it, as Bourdieu Pierre Bourdieu, famous French novelist and philosopher, is it now become a simulacra, something which is similar to her, but not the same? And how would you ever know? Here's another image, and it's deliberately provocative because it's designed to make you think. And the question that I'm asking here is this a war? Or is this a war? One is real, one is a simulacra. It's a representation. It's a rematerialization of something that was once real. And from probably the Iraqi campaign, second Iraqi campaign, the war where the US, the UK, and their allies invaded Iraq in order to topple Hussein, is that war was broadcast into our living rooms via television. And it was very real, but we weren't in a war. I was sat at home in the UK watching it, but I could watch a war. And this starts to blur the edges between what's material, what's immaterial, what's real, and what do we experience as real. Let's think about money. As we know from our studies so far, is that actually the amount of coins and notes that appear in our economy is a very low percentage, probably around about 3%. And then there is central bank money that appears into our economy, but that's also quite low. The bulk of it, the majority of our money, is credit. And credit is not money, because we've advanced money that didn't exist in the first place. So through the process of making a loan, we've taken something which is material, the concept of money, and we've rendered it immaterial by calling it credit. So is money real? And what makes it real? As it says on even this note is a promissory note that says that it promises to pay the bearer on demand £10. So in our new economy, what's real?